Hi, this is Kara from the Special Needs Mom podcast.
And this is Angela from Especially Organized, Sensible Solutions for Special Needs Moms.
We have this heart for special needs moms. And so we thought, you know what, let's combine forces. And we have come up with what we're calling the Purge Party. And you can pretty much guess what it is. It's a party where we're going to come together and we're going to purge or, in general, accomplish a goal, a small goal together. So we have set this for January 27th, starting at 8 o'clock for my Pacific Coast people,
which means 11 o'clock for all of you on the East Coast. So this is an opportunity. If you have something on your to-do list that has just been stuck there and you are wanting to move it up on the list, you're wanting to tackle, maybe it's a space or an area of your home or a category in your home that has just needed a little time and attention. This is your opportunity for you to be online with us while you work and have access for us to help you answer your questions, help guide you, and just serve you for those 2 hours.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you can tell like what we've designed is just this very high level of support for that project that you just haven't been able to tackle on your own. The thing that we are envisioning is that you get to leave this purge party feeling so accomplished because you did the thing. You started the year off getting that thing done that you were stuck on last year. And so it's a momentum builder, if you will. You can go ahead and sign up. We have a link ready for you, and we are offering this for $40 for the whole experience.
Absolutely. And we hope you'll join us. I think it's going to be really fun. It's going to be a great group of moms of special needs kids. So we all get each other. We all have an understanding of what it's like to have something on our to-do list, but just we haven't been able to tackle it yet. So I hope that you will join us. We're super excited to bring this to you, and we are thrilled to work with you.
All right. We'll see you all there. Hi, I'm Kara Riska, life coach, wife, and the mother of 4 incredible and unique kids. It wasn't all that long ago that my son received a diagnosis that had my world come crashing down. I completely lacked the ability to see past the circumstances, which felt impossible, and the dreams I once had for my life and family felt destroyed. Fast forward past many years of surviving and not at all thriving, and you'll see a mom who trusts that she can handle anything that comes her way and has access to the power and grace that once felt so completely lacking. I started the Special Needs Mom podcast to create connection and community with moms who find themselves up against what feels impossible. My intention is to spark the flare of possibility in your own life and rekindle the dreams that you hold impossible now. This isn't a podcast about your special needs child. This is a podcast about you. If you're a mom who feels anxious, alone, or stuck, then you are in the right place. Welcome. Well, hello there, and welcome back to the Special Needs Mom podcast. We are in episode 41. And at the very end of the episode, I'll tell you why that is so special. Today, we're going to talk about birthdays, specifically the birthdays of our special needs children. Now, if I'm totally honest, I have birthday drama regardless of special needs mothering or not. I feel like my birthday, I'm always a little weird about. I've gotten so much better over the years, but you know, I wanted to be like subtly special. And so I feel like I would kind of downplay, oh, it's my birthday. But inside I was like, please, please, please celebrate me. I want to feel important and special and loved. And so actually, I bet I'm not the only one like that. And I also put that in here because that probably plays into how we as moms celebrate or want to celebrate our special needs children. Prior to this episode, actually, as I was approaching my son's 12th birthday, my special needs son, I was having a lot of thoughts and feelings and non-excitement about throwing a birthday party for him. He really wanted one, and I noticed I did not really want to throw one. So I got a little curious, and as part of preparing for this episode, I put a poll out to my Instagram audience so that I could kind of see what other moms were experiencing in relationship to special needs children's birthdays. So what's kind of fun is I have other examples from other moms besides just my own as part of this. And so to those of you in Being Mom Together who shared, and those of you from Instagram who shared, thank you for providing your insight. So here's some things that came up for me as I was preparing to throw my own son's birthday party. Who do we invite? My son doesn't really have any friends of his own. A lot of the people in his life come along with other families. And while he loves connecting with people, that's what lights him up, he has a hard time maintaining individual peer relationships. And so typically, when you have a birthday party, you invite your friends. And it was an awkward conversation to me because I was like, does he know he doesn't have any friends? Don't really want to have that conversation to kind of emphasize and expose that. To me, it just felt very, very vulnerable. And I think that's the piece to me that I notice as his mom, that I was experiencing something totally different than he was experiencing, especially in the idea of who do we invite? He doesn't really have any friends. The other thing is, what do we do? My 12-year-old boy typical birthday party is very different than a party that my 12-year-old boy would enjoy. So especially when you're trying to invite peers of his own age, how do you throw a party where everybody's going to enjoy the festivities? And then, of course, we were still in the COVID complications. And I mean, managing that in a way that feels honoring and respectful to everybody and everybody's health circumstances, I don't know, it just feels confusing. Yet, my son was very excited about his birthday and specifically his birthday party. And we do something where kind of every other year, every child gets a chance to have a birthday party. It's a very loose schedule. I'm kind of like lost on where we are. When you have 4 kids, you're like, wait, who? Obviously, we were still in the COVID big time last birthday. So it's like, okay, it's time. I have no reasons to deny this child a birthday party. Anyhow, I will tell you more about what we decided to do a little bit later in the episode, but I wanted to share a little bit more insight from what other moms shared about birthdays. And I kind of took the themes from a variety of different places. Here's what I thought was really interesting. And I was like, of course, that makes total sense. So birthdays are reminders of milestones missed. So the birthday for this particular mom, this is a quote, was for some reason a reminder of how delayed she was and how unable she was when it came to speaking, potty training, playing, and all the typical things that we think about at that age. I totally relate to this, and my bet is that you do too. And I think that's the thing, is like it came up over and over again, is that the idea of a birthday, your child's turning 5, your child's turning 10, your child's turning 13, going into their teens, where they're supposed to be maybe separating from you a little bit socially. And obviously some of us have typical children to, I don't want to use the word compare, but I guess that's what we're doing, is kind of compare where other children are at this age. And when it's so different from where they actually are, I think the feelings that it exposes for parents is maybe another layer of grief. Grieving yet another milestone missed. Grieving a transition to teenhood different, or maybe even missing. Because I think when you think of teenhood, you think of all the things the teens are doing. But in some cases, our children are not doing them. Another thing that came up for parents is that they were really confused for moms. They were really confused. One of them said, like, a typical 1-year-old birthday is a smash cake. And I was like, totally. This is exactly what everyone does for a sweet little 1-year-old birthday party. You put a big old cake in front of a baby, except for if your baby has a Jeep tube, that baby's not going to be eating that cake. And so I was like, I totally see how that would be confusing. Like if all you see out there in society is the 1-year-old smash cake, you don't see anything else because, I don't know, I mean, maybe you just didn't have somebody ahead of you in their life that had your same circumstance. Then I can see it being like, well, what do we do? I don't know what to do because this is what we do for 1-year-old birthday parties. That was a really clever insight. Another one is conflicted. Moms are feeling conflicted. A mom said, part of me is thankful not to have to do the work that goes into a traditional party, but part of me is sad that she doesn't experience things in the same way that a typically developing child would. And of course, you can see how that would be very conflicting, to be happy about one thing, but then sad or even devastated about another. Having those together is totally possible, but I can see how you would feel a little bit conflicted. Do I feel happy? Do I feel sad? How do I feel both at the same time? And how happy do I want to feel about this? I think that would be the conflicting part. How happy do I want to feel about not having a birthday party for my child? Another one that came up over and over and over and over again is sad. You know, one example was a mom shared, I can't invite people over to celebrate because it would overstimulate him. Like it would just not be something that was going to honor him. And so there's that hole in that mom's experience where she's just sad. Her picture of birthday celebration or birthday party is people, is community, maybe family or friends, I don't know. So she was sad that she was going to not experience that part of birthday with her child. And also even something like some families can't really sing the traditional song of happy birthday. Although I'm going to say that's not the best song ever. My brother exposed me to this totally alternate version of the happy birthday song that was actually happy. We sang it for a couple years as a family. It was like so much fun. I have to look it up on YouTube. But the happy birthday song is like, it's traditional. I think that's why it's like, you know, it's tradition. It's what you do for a birthday. Another feeling, and I totally relate to this, is uncertain. An example of this is like praying that someone shows up to the party that you do throw. And so I can see the uncertainty that you would feel, like even how I shared, like, who do I invite? There's the uncertainty of how you navigate this. And as humans, we really don't like uncertainty, unfamiliar, or uncomfortable. Those are just things that our brain looks at or experiences. Our body experiences those feelings and it translates them as, no, this is not right. We got to change this. This is a problem. And so sometimes in inviting people in the showing up conversation, you can have a big family that kind of makes up for lack of friends. And a mom shared that like, that's kind of what they do is they just invite all their family over and they have a big family. So it kind of makes up. But she also shared that she knows that her son actually does get that there's something missing. Another thing a mom shared was the feeling of failure. She shared actually the first couple years of her son's life, she actually didn't celebrate at all because for her, it was failure day. And I love her note was just so short, but it just says, I've evolved. That was where she was. And we all totally get it. And we can hold you. We can hold you if you're there now and you're like, I don't celebrate. I don't want to. I don't even want to think about it. We've got you. Know that every year is different and there's no right or wrong way to do this. So I wanted to put in a couple alternative ideas and concepts as you approach your child's birthday. I guess I want to put in here, there's not going to be a right or a wrong way. There's going to be your way. And just like the mom shared earlier, it's like you're going to evolve and every year might be different, especially as I was sharing earlier that milestones as they are, let's just say missed, might cause you to want to celebrate a birthday differently, and it might cause you to grieve a birthday differently. So something I thought would be helpful in the approach of celebrating your child's birthday is to actually separate your wants and desires and feelings from your child's wants and desires and feelings, because they're likely going to be very, very different. And I'll use my own experience as an example here because it's recent, it's fresh. I have a good point of reference. I can look at my child's desire to have a party as totally pure in the sense of like, he just wanted to be celebrated. He wanted people over. He wanted all the foods and all the cakes and all the chips. And he wanted all the presents. And so, of course, why would he not want a party? I don't know that it was in his cognition that he didn't have a huge social community to invite individually. And I don't know that I needed to put that in there for him. My guess is he wasn't totally aware of that, just knowing kind of how his brain usually rolls. Now, if we contrast that to my wants and feelings and desires, if I'm totally honest, I would have been like, let's just skip this and have a really nice family party, or let's do a family experience. That would have been what I wanted and desired. And you see how the desires and wants are so different. Another thing that you might experience is that you might think birthday party, okay, like, and even as you notice for me, I'm like, okay, well, we have to invite friends. Well, do you? I mean, actually for my daughter, because I was so worn out for my son's birthday party and her birthday is like 2 weeks later, I was like, all right, we're going to have a birthday party. We're going to get decorations. We're going to do all the things, but we're just going to go over to my parents' house and celebrate. I don't have it in me to celebrate, like to invite other people into our world at this time. Like, we're just going to like honor her in this way. And like, fortunately she turned 4. And so she was super thrilled. And I told her we can invite all of her friends next year. You're going to have, just kind of in summary, you're going to have desires and feelings that you want in relationship to your child's birthday party. One mom also shared that like her daughter's 10. And so she's kind of had a number of years to kind of practice and see what works. First couple of years, it sounds like she was an automatic where like, okay, birthday party. And she experienced like, okay, do I really want to go through all the effort, even though she's not even aware that it's her birthday? And then that actually ended up bringing more sadness, because when your child's not aware that they're being celebrated, I can of course imagine that would bring some sad feelings, likely. And so she actually decided, though, that she wanted to continue having a party, because then she had a second daughter at that time. And she wanted her second daughter to see the entire family celebrating her special needs daughter. I love that because, well, it's interesting now also because as the special needs daughter has aged, she is aware that it's her special day. Does it look typical? By all means, no. It looks very different. But this mom actually has navigated it so beautifully to really just do what honors this daughter versus what she thinks is supposed to happen. Another mom shared that she spends the entire day before her daughter's birthday to acknowledge her own grief so that she can be available to celebrate the next day. And this is what I mean by separating out your wants and needs and desires and feelings from your child's. So in this particular case, this mom, I think her daughter's 20. And so she's been practicing this for a number of years. So I love the wisdom that she's developed in actually giving herself the space to go and grieve the life that her daughter didn't have. And this woman is so fun to watch. She just loves her daughter so hard and so fiercely. And her daughter's needs are pretty severe. And so seeing her just carry her child, her, adult grown child, and serve her with such grace and humor, it's really fun. Okay, so that's a little bit about giving yourself some space. And then figure out what your child really wants. This is when you get to love your child for who they actually are. One mom shared that because her son was just super not into the birthday song, that they obviously don't sing it, but they do totally go all out with decorations that he loves. And it sounds like it's the same thing every year. Sharks and blue balloons. It's like, that's awesome. You can get the Costco size. Really getting a chance to love your child for who they are and not who you want them to be. And I feel like this obviously could very well serve your child, but I feel like it could also be the thing that gives you so much yourself as you learn to love somebody for who they are and not for who you wanted them to be or who you wish they were. And I think special needs children actually give us a container to do this more. But I think if we did this with every human in our life, if we loved them for who they are versus who we wish they were, then we would have a much different world. Okay, the other thing I wanted to put in there as an approach to your special needs child birthday is really ramping up the self-care. Just like I mentioned in the last one, this mom takes an entire day to really grieve her child and her experience prior to celebrating. This is a chance to really recognize, okay, this is a time in your life as a mom that you're experiencing maybe some re-traumatization as you, again, grieve what's not in existence for your child, or even you grieve what might not be in the future, and really giving yourself some space around that to really notice what you might be resisting. And I guess an example of this is, like I shared earlier about my own example, is what I noticed is that I was like really avoiding making decisions. And I was just kept putting off. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. And so that's a chance to get curious, which I'm going to say curiosity is the precursor to all self-care, and really understanding and asking yourself the question, like, what do I need right now? Right? So self-care, remember, is not, go back to my episode about self-care that doesn't suck. And remember, self-care is not going out and going to Tahiti. It's not going out and getting a massage necessarily. It could be, but it's very well more likely that self-care for you looks like speaking kindly to yourself. Maybe it looks like journaling. Maybe it looks like calling a friend and asking someone just to hear you. And I know for myself, as I prepared for my son's birthday, I was in conversations with friends. Oh my gosh, this feels so awkward. I don't know what to do. And, you know, just even I'm recalling one specific conversation where I gave some space for my sadness over him not having any friends and how sad that was for me as a mom. So I want to point you guys that is self-care. That is how we care for ourselves as mothers. The last thing I thought would be fun to put in as we approach our children's birthday is the concept of breaking all the rules and what's expected. So if you notice, a lot of the conversation around birthdays is about what you're supposed to do or what tradition says is normal. Well, obviously, none of this is normal. We're way beyond that. And so I like to just kind of give the tickler of an idea in there to give your chance a self to wipe everything off the table and then only put back on what you want to. And so this will look so different for every single one of you. Some of you will have what looks like a very typical birthday party, whereas if you were looking from the outside in, you wouldn't notice anything was different. Some of you will go watch the airplanes at the airport, and that will be your form of birthday celebration, because that will be what really meets your child's delight in celebrating them. That will be the way that you honor them the best for their birthday celebration. I think you get the point. This could look different for everybody. So you have permission to not have a party for your child. You have a permission to not sing happy birthday. You have permission to not even have a cake if your child can eat cake. Or you have permission to have cake either on your own the day before without your child, or any variety of combination of cake or no cake. Another thing I thought was interesting here is really just, again, with the breaking of the rules and what's expected, is really every year approaching this with curiosity. I know some other moms express like that during the years, maybe 1, 2, 3, the early years, that the gap between their child, who was not necessarily developing typically, and a child who wasn't super far. You know, in some cases you could still go to like the typical kids play group and there was differences, but it wasn't like miles and miles apart. But then as the child gets a little bit older, that gap gets a little bit wider. And that's when I noticed, even for myself, that it felt more confusing, more sad, more conflicting. And so just notice that if you're in these transitional years, like from preschool to grade school, from grade school to middle school, and I'm sure I haven't gotten there, but I'm sure from middle school to beyond, that these are transition points where different layers of our child's disabilities will become apparent, and we might have to grieve those over and over again. So just notice this as you approach each birthday, that they might all feel very different, even though, yes, you've done it before. So now I'll tell you a little bit about what we ultimately decided to do for my son's birthday. I'm really happy with how it went. Once I sat down and said, Kara, you are deciding today, like it was in my calendar for a Saturday. You're sitting down, you're deciding everything. You will not be delaying anymore. I gave space for my feeling, right? I told you earlier, I was feeling reluctant. But I made the decision to make it happen. So like I said, I think the most confusing or conflicting part for me was about who to invite. And so I kind of contemplated, okay, do I invite like my older son's friends and have it be a really neat opportunity for them to kind of like rally around their friend and their friend's little brother? That didn't feel quite right. And so ultimately what we did is we sat down and I went through a series of people with my son and said, hey, what about this person? What about this person? And some people he was more familiar with than not, but it was also the people that I was bringing up were people that I knew that I would feel very safe with and very open to navigating this really challenging aspect of my life with. And so ultimately, the list, if you were invited, you're welcome. Ultimately, the list was people that I felt really safe with, that I knew that would treat my son with dignity and they wouldn't pity him and that they would just like treat him like any other person. And so that's how we came up with our invite list. And then we sat down and I think it just actually kind of really flowed well together. My son this year at school I should do an episode on this, but we prepared a slideshow together sharing about the uniquenesses of his disabilities because I realized, okay, wait, all these kids that he's grown up with have no idea necessarily what's going on and why he does some of the things that he does. And so it finally occurred to me, like, we've got to share this with them. And especially outside of school, where he's grown up with a lot of these kids and families where I'm like, they have no idea why he does the things that he does or he walks the way that he does, any of it. So it actually like really aligned that I had wanted to share in a fun way with some of the kids, like, hey, this is what Levi's got going on. And so we ended up coming up with some inclusion games so that we could have fun letting Levi be known and really kind of having him be really proud of who he is and how he rolls. So we came up with the first game was easy to come up with. And then after that, it took a while to do some brainstorming and Googling. And I did not find a lot of stuff on Google. So ladies, we need to step up our inclusion games. Game. Okay. The first game we came up with was the eye patch toss. My son happens to be blind in one eye, and so we thought it would be really fun to have all of his friends put an eye patch on their eye and then try to do a balloon toss. Well, it turns out it's really hard. So it didn't last very long, but the laughter and the fun of it was an absolute hit. So that was a great one. So the next game that we did was we thought, okay, well, he also has a physical disability where he has hemiplegia, where half of his body is not jiving as well with his brain as the other. And so he walks with a little bit of a modified gait and he's not super quick. He has some lack of ability, obviously, to move that leg. And so we had somewhat like yardsticks and tape. And so we proceeded to tape a stick to every child's leg. And then it was funny because like we were out there in the front yard and like, that's as far as I got in the planning portion. I was like, wait, what are we going to do now that we have all these kids with demobilized legs? We didn't totally have that out. And I was not wanting to do a race because when you do that kind of game with 13-year-olds, they just totally blow through the tape and they like broke all the sticks. And it was one of those things where I'm like, let go. They're having fun. The whole point is to have people experience in a fun way. Wow, Levi can't move his leg. And Levi got to share with everyone that he can't move parts of his leg. And so I would say, even though they didn't follow all the rules they had for the game, it was still a success. Now, this last game, we thought of as kind of a joke. The lesson learned is don't tell your husband this kind of game if your husband's like mine, because then he'll be like, oh, babe, we're totally doing that. Well, it's called Stick a Needle in It. And my son takes a daily shot. And so I thought, wouldn't it be funny if we gave all the kids a chance to stick themselves with a needle? And I was like 10% serious, 90% joking, because I was like, okay, let's not traumatize the kids that come to the party. But my husband really went with it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I think because of the people we had at the party, I was like, okay, this can fly. But I was a little bit like, I don't know if this is socially acceptable. Anyhow, a handful, we had candy bars to entice the kids with to make it even worse. And I don't think anyone was fully traumatized, and it was totally optional. And a couple of kids were really excited about doing it. And I'll have to mention that these needles are quite small. Although I'll say that doesn't make it easier when you've never stuck yourself with a needle. So that was kind of what we did for the birthday celebration. And I think it was a total success. I think that even some of the kids that we invited, that they haven't had the chance to be invited to a birthday party as much as some of their peers might have been. And it felt right. It felt really, really good to celebrate Levi in this way. So I'm just very appreciative that my community showed up for me in that way. So thank you. In closing, I think the thing that I took from this episode, especially, is that birthdays are a way of being celebrated by others. One mom said this so beautifully. We all deserve to have a birthday and to be celebrated by others. All lives deserve to be celebrated. And that actually, oh my gosh, it brings up a lot of emotion because it just recognizes the value of our children and the opportunity to celebrate them for who they are. I really loved that. And so thank you for listening to the birthday episode. Maybe we'll do one every year. I don't know. Because as I mentioned earlier, the reason that the 41st episode is significant is because this episode is coming out the day before my 41st birthday. Right? Oh my gosh. Can you even, the way that worked out, the serendipity. I was pretty thrilled about that because I had been having this episode in the back of my mind, and I was looking at my editorial calendar of my podcast, and I saw 41st episode, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's on my birthday week. And then I thought, oh my gosh, I've got to do the birthday episode. And so I'm just really, really pleased on how that worked out. So here's the thing. Since it's my birthday, I want to be celebrated. And I specifically want to be celebrated by you rating and reviewing the podcast. Even if it's just pressing however many stars you would get it, but I would urge for 5. But actually, if you would take a second to rate the podcast or share the podcast. If you're like, I'm not on Apple Podcast, I can't rate it and I can't review it. I don't know why the other platforms don't have this opportunity. Then your opportunity to celebrate my birthday is to share the podcast. Maybe you share it on social media. Maybe you just share it with a friend. Any way you put it, that would be a gift to me. And so as we wrap up this episode, I put a teaser in last week for the workshop that I have created for you all. I'm so excited about this. So the official date of the workshop, and I'll tell you about what it's about in a second, is July 31st. You're not going to want to miss this. It is going to be live virtual. So it's going to be on the Zoom platform, but I also am going to keep it relatively small so that it doesn't get to be overwhelming like you're one of just a million people on a Zoom call. We're going to be doing a story crafting workshop. The idea here is that as a special needs mom, yes, your story is intertwined with your child's, but you have your own story. Yeah, my guess is that your special needs child's a huge part of that story. But when you really step back and you map out your life, who you are, and your story, then as you get to fit your child in as part of that story, not the entire story, it's a really, really empowering and refreshing, and I'm going to say healing experience. Imagine what it would be like to tell your story in a way that you are so proud of, that you just are able to really honor and respect who you are and be able to articulate that in words. Well, that's what this workshop is all about. It's going to be 3 hours, so it's a manageable time. It's not going to be too long to sit in front of a Zoom, but it will be well worth your time and your investment. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a link on the show notes for this episode so that you can get on the waiting list. I still have to kind of set up all the whole back end of it, but I wanted to put the date out there since I know summer is a busy time and there's a lot going on. I wanted you to mark your calendars and sign up because, like I said, there is going to be somewhat of a cap to this. Well, this was fun. Thank you for listening. Thank you in advance for celebrating my birthday with me. I will see you on the next episode. One more thing before we officially wrap up this show. Sometimes when I'm listening to podcasts, I have the experience of wanting more. I'm listening at the very end thinking, I sure wish that episode didn't end. I invite you, if you feel in any way the same way, I invite you to the Special Needs Mom podcast community, which is a free group that I host on Facebook, where we as a community of fellow moms who listen to this podcast and are experiencing life in similar shoes, get to talk to one another, get to share stories, get to actually interact. I hope you'll consider joining. See you over there.